Chapter 4, Incentive. So what kind of incentive is appropriate, and when to provide them? Remember, what a second grader likes is far different than what a senior in high school would like. So get to know your students and figure out what appropriate incentive works for you. Make reasonable, easy-to-achieve goals for instant reward. Ask a question. Occasionally offer a Jolly Rancher as a reward for a correct answer. There's a couple rules, though. Wait till a lot of people have the answer. If you only pick the fastest people, they will be the only ones that answer. Try to be fair on who you pick. Going boy, girl is a good strategy, but make it fair while not being predictable. Use a checklist if you need to. It doesn't have to be every time. I use it when there is a particularly dry topic or when students need a boost. I find the Jolly Rancher incentive particularly useful, not only to get instant answers to my questions, but also in many schools and different cultures there's a lot of stigma about students who answer too many questions. In fact, some of the poorer schools I worked in, many of the students, if they answered too many questions, were accused of acting white. This obviously is a very foolish perception because color has no bearing on someone's intelligence, but that being said, it was still a barrier that had to be overcome. By offering a Jolly Rancher for a correct question, I was providing appropriate cover for all my students to be able to answer the question without getting hassled by their friends. That is an example of an instant reward. Another thing I do is the good behavior chart. Basically, if a student does not get a written warning for the week, they get a check next to their names on a good behavior chart that I create. When all the students hit a benchmark of 5, 10, 15, or 20 checks, then the class gets to vote on a class privilege, one that I approve or suggest. This works twofold. You're giving a visual reminder and a reinforcement for good behavior, which will not only encourage more of it, but also point out to the rest of the class who is not getting the checks, and hopefully the rest of the class can non-violently encourage the offender to behave. You can make peer pressure work for you. Regardless of whatever reward you might pick, it is important that everyone needs to know exactly what is needed to get that reward. Whether reward or consequence, there needs to be a clear path to each. The less confusion there is, the more likely your students will be to choose to work for a reward they know they can reach. Always gear the class so they're working towards some type of reward. To earn reward, they need to get what you need done so they can have what they want. Example, if they want to play a game at the end of the period, you would tell them, okay, sure, let's work hard to make time to do that. If we get the assignment done, and if we have time, we can certainly play a game at the end of the period. How much is up to you. The faster we get the work done, the quicker we learn the information, the more time we have to play a game. It's a win-win. But sometimes, no matter what you try, you may have the class try to test you.
Can we talk about sex?
When a situation like this occurs and all of a sudden your little darlings start to turn into little devils, remember that they are young people and they are merely reacting to the environment you're providing. If they're misbehaving, you need to reset the environment for conditions that will allow them to behave. Option 1. The behavior counter. I usually start class each year with a behavior counter. What I mean by that is at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of each class, I will put an arbitrary number on the board, normally about 20 or 30. And what I'll do is I'll explain to the class if they're taking good notes, if they're answering my questions, if they're being well behaved, well then I can be reasonably sure that they already know the material. They're demonstrating that they know what they're doing and they're doing the right thing. Therefore, they need less homework problems in order to finish the learning experience. If, however, a class is misbehaving, not taking good notes, not answering my questions, or doing other things that I find unsatisfactory, in that case I have no choice but to increase the homework amount only to be sure that they still get the same amount of learning for that class period. As you can imagine, there's a high incentive then for students to be quiet and behave, and to participate in class. As they see me lower the number, they get more and more incentivized to keep that process going. In the rare case where class is misbehaving and the number goes up, it doesn't take long for them to realize that they're going the wrong direction. They very quickly decide to work with me. The true benefit of this is the fact that they're in control. They're deciding what happens. If they decide to behave, they get rewarded. If they decide to misbehave, they have consequences. But by giving them that power, you will find that they will almost always veer towards the path that gives them the reward. And in so, you're rewarded as well because your class runs correctly. You will find that when you empower students in this fashion, more often than not, they will follow through with what you need them to do. Just remember that no matter what number you have at the end of the period, follow through with it. If they work it down to a 2, then give them 2 problems. If they've misbehaved and the counter's 50, then you assign 50 problems. As you follow through with what you say, the students will be further incentivized to do as you ask because they know that you will follow through. Beware of the please monster, and if you don't know what that is, you'll find out. They'll go, please, 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 and if you bend to that please, you will never have full order again.
Please, 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 please.
Option 2. Let's talk again about the good behavior chart. I want to provide you with some ideas you might choose as your students earn their rewards. The first option I offer my students is the ability to listen to iPods during the homework time. Now, that doesn't mean during lecture, but the last 5 or 10 minutes of my class I usually allow to homework, and so if they pick the privilege, they can listen to their iPods during that time. Another option might be to play a game like Heads Up 7 Up or something else the last few minutes of class. Another idea is no homework every other Friday. That's very popular along with my accelerated math group, and sometimes they even get a second privilege during the year and they'll ask for no homework every Friday. But that's as far as I'll go as far as no homework, because homework is still vital to their learning. But the most fun game I have is by far the ball game. But what is the ball game? Well, the ball game is like hot potato. Everyone gets against the wall of the room facing inwards. The object is to toss the ball to another person in the hopes that they do not catch it. The ball must be thrown to the person's quote-unquote strike zone, which is between their neck and knees and from about shoulder to shoulder. I also set a speed limit on how hard it can be thrown, because obviously I don't want people throwing the ball very fast where someone might get injured. I explained to the kids that this is a game of guile and deception, not strength. The idea is to throw it to a person who is not expecting it, so fake throws and other methods of misdirecting the ball is quite legal. My personal rules, though, are no ball whipping, no ceiling shots, and no bank shots off the wall. If a person does not catch a ball that is thrown to them, they are down and must return to the middle of the room and take a seat at one of the desks. If a student throws outside another person's strike zone, then they're the ones who are out. Now, in a very short amount of time, you won't have many people getting out, as it's relatively easy to catch a ball that's been thrown to you and at a moderate speed. So when you feel ready, put in a second ball. All of a sudden the game goes from easy to wild because there are now 2 balls moving at once. By the way, I call them projectiles so the kids don't laugh if I were to say 2 balls. Declare yourself the judge at the start of the game and explain that your decisions are final, though admit, like any official, while you will do your best, some of the calls you make may not always be agreed with. In a case of a dispute, make your decision and tell everyone to hang on to the projectiles until the person in question has taken their seat. Again, peer pressure works better than having to raise your voice. If a kid misbehaves during the game, you have them sit and tell them they cannot play in the next game. That usually works. If there is serious misbehavior, then have the child either sit down or wait outside and then take disciplinary action, covered in a later lesson here. Now, the nice thing about this game is usually you will have to play this in the last 5 or 10 minutes of class. Your choice there. So when the bell rings or when you dismiss your class, whoever is still in the game is declared the winner, whether there is 1 person left or 10. If there is a winner before the end of class, just say it's round 2 and then restart the game. A personal thanks to Jerry Crawley for creating the awesome ball game. Like all good teachers, I was more than happy to adopt her great idea for my class as well.